Good evening.
Evening. How we doing?
Good. Good. Improving good.
Yeah. It's been a little while. I've been away on holiday and we caught up, which was nice. I had a lot of dramas here and abouts. So not exactly fresh in my memory. The last show we did, so I apologise for the listeners for that one. It might be a little bit off to the side or disconnected from where we were.
Yeah,
So how have things been?
good. The main thing I had on my mind to discuss was how talking to the counselor went for me because I made a few interesting breakthroughs.
Yes, you said you were
Um,
going to see someone, so how'd that go?
good. Um, One of the things I found about what counseling is is that it's not, oh, I have all these issues, how do I sort them out? And oh, here's all the solutions. Oh yeah, yeah, that fixed things. No, that's not what happens. It's like there are sure he can offer some strategies, but if the reason you've got an issue with one thing is a deeper issue, then you'll probably not take up the strategies because it's a deeper issue that's stopping you trying to fix the thing you're talking about. And the real value that a counselor or psychologist gives you is they're paid to sit there and listen to you ramble while you try and work out whatever the hell's in your head and find the gaps and the bits that don't make sense and the bits that when you pull them up it's like, well, yeah, that doesn't make any sense at all. Like something that I rambled my way to with his help because he can ask pertinent questions and say, well, that's interesting, tell me more about this bit, type useful questions. And my internal self worth calculation didn't have any positives plugged into it. So,
That sounds about right, to be honest.
yeah, in the sense of I was reassessing it afterwards and it's like, okay, what would another person say my worth is? Well, I have all these skills. I'm doing these things. I'm raising my son. I'm being productive in my job. I'm being helpful to friends when that comes up. So, okay, those are things of value, which other people would look at and say they're of value. And so it's worth including them in my self assessment of value. I'm not entirely ugly. So, in an attracting women sense, there's that. I'm not totally unfit. Um, I've got some degree of intelligence, and it's like, okay, well, if I include those in, it actually comes out as not that bad.
I love how you're being so conservative with those statements.
Well, I don't want to be arrogant, and I've noticed,
Confidence.
yeah, approaching cautiously. Approaching
Mm.
cautiously.
I suppose you got to build it up slowly.
Yeah, yeah, and
Hard to jump from 0 to 100.
yeah, because I think last time we talked about you having the opposite anger issues to me, that I can't let it out. And
Yeah.
like the other thing that was the breakthrough sort of at the end of the rambly conversation with the counselor was associated with that um, I have been scared of my own strength for a long time. Not in the sense of I'm super strong, could knock over a car like Superman if I twitch wrong, but I did karate through my adolescence, so I'm well aware of the ability, the danger of a fist, and the I know how walls are built, so I'm well aware of the ability to knock bits of them out if you apply your fists and elbows to it. And similarly with my son who's 5, it's like I'm well aware of the physical potential that my body has to harm his. But the breakthrough associated with that is that the what I was scared of was strength from anger or rage, that sort of uncontrolled something. But in saying that, if someone threatened my son, then I would be an internal alignment about beating them up. And
Mm.
he asked the question of, can love be strong, or something along those lines, and that then got me thinking about that, and that love can be immensely strong. In many ways, it's stronger than rage or hate, and that strength through love, in the sense of, um, like you talked about sitting there in a room and knowing you could beat everyone in the room as a sort of internal feeling of your own strength.
A sense of being the most dangerous person.
Mm. Where the 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 possibly more agreeable on the personality scale version of that I found for myself was the idea of sitting in a room, looking around, and thinking I could protect someone from anyone in this room.
Mm.
And that was really, really exciting for me, that to realize on a deep level, and of course things aren't quite fixed yet. It's like, oh, big step forward. That's good. There's still bits to work on associated with that, and it's like chopping your way through a thicket of weeds. It's like, ah, I got through a big tree. That's good.
So you're saying that you discovered your capacity for aggression in danger and harm at a younger age and chose to reject it. And you sort of had to come to the realization that that's actually a useful thing to have for, say, protecting people.
Yeah, like it links into, like, a strong memory of mine is hurting my brother by accident when we were playing, or we'd have a fight or something. I don't know what the context was, but the memory is my brother, who was 3 years younger than me, crying and mum cuddling him, and kids get hurt and cry when they're playing and so on. It happens. But I was crying because I hurt him, and I was crying saying I was sorry, and that memory stuck very strongly for me. And I mentioned that to mum, and it had not stuck for her in the same way.
I can tell you that's because she had hundreds of those memories.
Yeah, but for me, it happened a few times, so it's not a specific instance, but well, maybe it is a specific
It's like a
instance with later reinforcement.
amalgam,
A
perhaps.
little bit, yeah, but the the sense that if I screw up, I'll hurt someone, so I don't want to be strong, is was there from childhood. And like, I did karate, but I never got into any fights. I've never been in an actual fight. The most physical conflict with someone who wasn't just sparring with me, where it is sport rather than conflict, was with my ex. And there, it's like I was almost
You
laying
can't
down in front
really,
of her rather
yeah,
than
you can't
fighting back.
really fight back on that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
a bit of Fight Club vibes here.
yeah. But
Something like that is dramatically appealing for a lot of reasons, and I think it's because a lot of us haven't had that experience. Like I fought people in like primary school, but that doesn't really count. Although, I don't know. We weren't big people, but we still went at it. I don't know.
yeah, because it's like I in visualizing it, which can be helpful to play out scenarios in your head. So I can't see myself being the aggressor, but if there's no other option, I can. Oh, the image I get is someone who's blustering and trying to to want to fight because they want to be the big guy, not because they think a fight is a good idea. It's like one of the things that you do get from doing martial arts, I think, is okay, here is how you snap someone's arm. Here's how you make them pee blood for a week. It's like there is harm that can be done. Like if you fall and hit your temple on a rock, you are dead just instantly. It's like there is you don't want to risk that. You don't want to go there, but at the same time, it's like if someone's being a threat, I can imagine myself sort of take my watch off, possibly my glasses, depending on whether I think that they'll be better with or without them, because if they get smashed into my face, then that's not good. And
I'm so calm about this. Do you never? I think I've asked this before, but you don't experience any desire to harm others, do you?
not that I'm aware of. If I do,
Hmm.
it's heavily repressed or way down there or something, but it's like I don't want to hurt someone. It's like if someone's a threat, I want to stop them being a threat. But I don't
Right.
want to
There's no impulse there.
beyond the sort of automatically generated intrusive thoughts that are just bits of your brain saying, here is a course of action that's physically possible.
Okay. But for that, is there a sense of desire to have that outcome happen? Or a sense of joy or elation in the fantasy?
It's there's something there. It's not joy in the thought of hurting someone.
Being powerful?
Yeah, there's the idea of victory has an appeal. The idea of being the strong one has an appeal,
Hmm.
but it's like then I'd say, okay, are you done? Are you gonna stay down? Okay. Do you want me to call an ambulance? It's not I want to beat you into the dirt. It's I want to stop you being an idiot. And
I wonder about those desires that you mentioned. Or you're not using those words, but that's the word I use because that's
hmm,
applicable to my situation. I experience the intrusive thoughts. I think I've said this before, to the point where they're difficult to contain.
hmm,
And there is a sense of attraction to those acts, sense of feeling powerful and hurting others, and a sense of skill and victory as well. Um, the way you describe is very sober. It's very much you, how you believe you would act in some situation where you would have to do these things. But you did reluctantly, I might notice, mention such intrusive thoughts, and that there's some kind of positive reinforcement attached to it that may be unexplored as a guess by
I
your
know there are
unmention of it.
like the the book which I should read sometime, Ordinary Men. You know it,
Yes.
but I am aware that the parts of the self which would revel in power or be apathetic to violence are part of myself, but they are balanced. They are counterbalanced by others which would rage against that. And that balance can then come into alignment if there is threat, where it's okay, you're drunk or you're feeling aggressive. I'm going to do what I can. I'm going to do whatever I think is best in the situation. And sometimes the drunk needs to be knocked down
Right. So
because he's a danger to others, and that's where those two parts come into alignment: the potential for violence and the wish to prevent harm.
when you get hurt, do you have an emotional reaction?
I've Getting hurt by someone has been a very rare experience for me. I've been rather sheltered and fortunate in that.
Even in general?
Yeah, it's the person who has physically hurt me the most was my ex, who was physically weaker than her, and I knew that I could easily overpower her if need be, but there
Okay.
was complication psychologically there.
Not a person then, for example. Say you hurt yourself by accident or you're frustrated and you hurt yourself by accident. Do you have any emotional response? Any rage or anything like that?
Not rage. It's some hurts. It's just, oh, let's get a plaster. um, like I remember at karate, oh, kicking the back of my heel with my toenail and having that rip up a bit, and then oh, now I got to clean up the blood.
Do you
Um,
ever get aggressive
oh, as
in
in
your practice?
aggressive in frustration.
Yeah, so you were having a sparring match. Would you ever get aggressive with the partner?
In the sense of sport, but not in the sense of anger.
Hmm. And you did this when you were younger.
Yeah, sort of all of my teens, basically, as far as I can tell or remember.
I think you had a pretty good childhood.
I think
That's what I
so.
think.
Yeah.
Um, it sounds like you had things well under control even before your encounters with the ex. And even on top of that, her being aggressive towards you and you not being able to respond might have been good training
I have had
in
that thought that, um,
withholding aggression.
yeah, there's one of the benefits that I can see out of that relationship is she was very patience trying in the sense of um, unnecessary repetition of explanations and explain this to me again, tell me this again and again and again and again and again, and things just taking a long time and it not being, this is the answer, situation over. It's like, no, it goes on for like several hours, 5 hours, or whatever. Um, and so dealing with my son, that has helped me build the patience to deal with a 5-year old. Although something I did find recently that's relevant, oh, it, I got clarity on it because I explained it to him, which helped. But that sometimes when I'm trying to get him to do things, or no, when I've had a busy day and the busy, and I'm just like, okay, I need a break. I just need to sit down for 5 minutes, and I go to sit down to decompress for a little bit, and he comes and leans on me, and it's like, I love you, but please go away. And then after a
What's the
while,
feeling you have in that moment?
leave me alone, just go away. And I did shout at him,
Right.
which
See, that's not leave me alone isn't a feeling. That's a logical explanation of a feeling
hmm,
or a result of one.
the feeling was wanting to escape, I think. Like, go away. I need to.
Yeah. That
There's pressure building up. I need to relax
pressure?
with.
What pressure? Pressure of what?
Trying to think of a way of describing it that makes sense, but pressure of go away, just give me a break.
Or
Or the pressure keeps building. Oh,
until what?
all the scenarios that come up in my head are contained ones of stopping anything happening. And it's like the most snapping I can see in those scenarios is sort of a lash out with a couple of fingers, or some sort of the worst case would be some sort of physical lashing out and then feeling terrible. And of course, depending on how that goes, that could be terrible. But I
Alright,
used it
so
as
what's the emotion? Like, I'm pushing you on purpose here because you seem to really not want to say the word.
does it qualify as anger?
I think so.
Because anger and the associated emotions are secondary emotions. Am I overanalyzing it?
What do you mean by that?
By overanalyzing or secondary emotions?
Secondary, yeah.
Um, this is more intellectual, based on things I've heard, but I can also see how it.
Are you trying to say that it's a response to a stimuli? Is that what you mean by secondary?
Mm, no, there's a
No,
emotional layer
that's
before it.
all.
Like fear leads to anger, or senses of shame can lead to anger, and anger is a. In this case, I think anger would be the secondary emotion to pressure, or
Frustration. I think
yeah,
pressure's an emotion,
yeah,
but frustration seems to fit for me.
yeah, I think so. But it's not. It's yeah, wanting something and not being able to get it. Just a strong desire for quiet, and then not being able to get that, or
That's
similarly,
yeah,
yeah,
that's my
frustration
whole
would
life.
probably fit.
I would say that's frustration,
Hmm.
and I don't think they're. I think frustration and anger is a difference in amount, not kind. Yeah, I don't know other way to say that. I do believe that frustration is anger, just a milder form. And then the word anger carries so much baggage with it, but
Hmm. I think it's in the
I think
same
it's an
general category, but I think there
yeah,
are
and I
subtle
think it's
differences.
an emotion that we experience most of the time.
Hmm.
And I think there's a lot of anger in most people. Now, perhaps I'm trying to, I can say anthropomorphize other people are human too, but
Project.
put my mental state on others. Um,
Yeah, I had a. I explained to my son after that because the way I dealt with it was I went to my room and shut the door, and then he was banging on it.
yeah,
But
sounds
it
familiar.
at least he was a meter away, and I could sit there and breathe for a minute. And then afterwards, I explained to him how just like sometimes he has trouble controlling his body, or he gets frustrated because he's not getting something he wants. Sometimes I have trouble. I need to. I can't let myself lose control of my body. Was how I explained
How
it
do
to
you deal
him.
with his frustration? Like, if he doesn't get what he wants and he like cries or whatever, what my daughter does, maybe he throws tantrums because he's aggressive or
Um,
whatever. How do you deal with that?
if it's him wanting something and me saying no, it's the sort of okay, let me know when you calm down. Like, one time that's a good example. Uh, I took away one of his toys because he'd been, oh, what would it be? Playing around too much, had many warnings that it's bedtime, you need to get into bed and stop playing around and doing other things. It's time to get in bed and stay in bed. I'm going to take one of your toys. And I'd warned a few times and not carried it out, so he'd sort of acclimatized to it. And then I actually carried it out, and he wasn't playing with the toy at the time. It was just sitting on the shelf, and I was going to give it back in the morning, and he wasn't going to be playing with it overnight. But I took it out of his room and hid it in my room. And then he sat there and banged his legs and yelled that he wanted it, and then it's like, okay, well, I'm going to go away and let you calm down. And
Yeah,
it's
it's a fair way of doing that.
yeah.
I think I might incorporate a little bit of that with me and my daughter.
I think I got it
She
partly
cries
from
a lot.
yeah. I think I got it partly from Jordan Peterson, the way he talked about dealing with his son who was very very
Mm,
strong-willed, and I think
angry.
yeah, that you if you want to play the game of being part of the family, you need to follow the rules of the game. And if you're not
Yeah.
ready to follow the rules, you can calm your body down until you can.
It's kind of amazing the difference between my girls. My youngest hasn't really had the word no yet. Like she's starting to now, and she just listens. Like she'll repeat no, and then she'll walk off and do something else. Awesome. I love it. My oldest is cries all the time. She gets upset at everything. And I know that's my fault, but it's also amazing to firsthand see the difference in intelligence from a child who experienced stress in the first year and the child who didn't. It's, it's heartbreaking to see because I did that to her and she's going to suffer with that forever and I'm going to have to try and help her fix that. Then again, I did that with my wife. So, you know, yes, I have experience with that. But my youngest she's unbelievably intelligent for not even a year old. It really blows my mind. Like
How
she's started
much?
to talk now and she's communicating consistently at a level that her sister is, who's 2.5.
Mm,
Okay, maybe not quite the same level, but closer than I would have guessed for her first week of speaking.
yeah. I feel like I need to clarify what I think you were saying, but multiple interpretations came to mind of you went through fixing those things with your wife, not causing the same things with your wife.
Yes, yes. Feel free to help me make my points properly during this show because I'm sure I'm going to say something really stupid. And it'd be very helpful if you jump in and be like, I'm sure you didn't mean that. I'm sure you meant this. Um, yes, my wife had similar experiences with her father, except for the whole 18 years and not one. And it's been a long and incredibly rough road helping her through that, but we've got there. Um, um, I carry a lot of scars for it, I think, to be entirely honest. I did not come out of that battle clean, and I think I'm a lot worse for wear mentally than I was beforehand,
There's a thought
which I
I
didn't think was possible.
mm, there's a thought
But
I had
yeah. Mm,
that uh, it's easy to think that it would be better not to have any scars. It's easy to think that it would be better not to have had those experiences or to be able to protect our children from them.
mm,
But in some ways, I don't think you can grow up without them. That
no.
you
Well,
like we can't grow up without we can't finish growing up without some scar tissue. Not that we can't escape it, but that it is integral to the process. It's just like you need to be exposed to a wide variety of bacteria so your immune system can learn. You need to experience some harsh things and learn to heal from them.
Well, the world is harsh, and either you learn that when you're young, and it's fundamental to the way you view the world, or that gets delayed until you fully formed your identity, and then you walk out into the world and the world lays you on your ass, and it just cracks your identity right to the core because your whole map of the world is wrong.
Mm,
And I've seen that happen to people, and I don't think it's very pleasant.
yeah.
Um, but it also can't be an excuse to justify or excuse terrible actions by parents, which is all
Yes.
too common.
Saying that something saying that harsh experiences will happen does not alleviate the guilt from those who cause them. It's like saying that
Yeah,
there will be cars stolen in the city and it's basically inevitable does not alleviate the guilt of those who steal the cars.
yeah. There's an interesting theory about maybe a way to help stop that. We can go that at some other point. I think I put it in the show notes. Aha,
Oh, we
we're
have
getting
show
very
notes.
professional now. Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
As something to talk about at some point, the idea of net zero trauma, which would be an unbelievably lofty goal to aim at.
Hmm.
Now, the way I manage that personally now is I make sure that I'm not a cause of that, at least to the best of my ability, which is, of course, flawed because I'm a human being like everyone else, including you, Mr. Judgy listener. Um, from the future, don't worry, the three listeners listening now.
Yeah. Or the person who's acutely aware of their own failings. It's like you're not all
Yeah,
bad, you're not all good. It's like
yeah.
everyone's a mix.
So, anyway, the way we manage that is we try not to be the cause ourselves,
Hmm.
but I also don't hide things from her. Like, when we watch a movie or a TV or whatever, I don't like watching kids' shows. We don't do kids' TV. That's a hard no. We have some animated movies. My wife likes sort of teen animated movies, not like baby shows. You know, we don't have any of the Cocomelon or what's that one that you want? Paw Patrol? None of that shit. And I make sure to tell the children that she plays with at my coworkers, yeah, how to like turn the TV off because we don't do that. Um, yeah. So she doesn't really watch that. She doesn't really watch YouTube. Occasionally, my wife will watch like clips of babies being funny or something because she's a woman. Um, and they won't watch that. But I will watch, you know, adult movies or play video games or something. And I won't try and hide it from her unless it is like way over the top and unrealistic.
When
Like
you
there's a
say
couple
when you
ones
say
that are
adult
fun.
movies, I feel like
I
it's
like okay.
yeah.
I nothing super over the top, but I'm not going to hide a movie from my child that has violence in it.
Violence being someone gets punched.
Uh well, I'm kind of blanking on examples.
Well, John Wick to pick
And
something to comment on or to
no, I wouldn't pick John
yeah,
Wick.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I don't watch over the top action movies. She's seen Star Wars,
Hmm.
seen like I said, my wife likes to watch a lot of sort of animated type movies, sort of kids and family movies,
Hmm.
PG-13 kind of movies.
Avatar: The Last Airbender
And
was a good quote kids one with some really dark
uh,
undertones.
yeah, I thought it was a shit movie.
The movie was totally
Yeah, yeah. Oh, the show was great.
yeah, yeah.
But no, we don't. Yeah, none of that even because that's not the kind of thing that we like to watch. Um, The kind of thing that my wife likes to watch is things like How Do You Train Your Dragon or something.
Ah, yeah.
That kind of level of movie, like 8, 10-year-old kind of movie, I guess.
Hmm.
We let the kids watch that. We've watched TV shows that have, some violence in them, or, some very mild adult themes. Nothing explicit.
Hmm. A
Um,
sort of
Nothing super
acknowledgement.
gory, like
Yeah,
it
acknowledgement that
wouldn't be a
things
Game of
exist.
Thrones or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like also, okay, violence for an example, she's seen me play video games before. She's like, okay, people getting shot or something, but it's not like Doom. It's not super gory. It's just kind of like bang bang or things fall down or
Hmm.
a sword or a bow or something. It's an understanding that like people die. Violence is the thing that can occur, but is, I do explain like this is not something that really happens in the real world. And I don't really think I need to because it's like on the screen there's violence or whatever, but she's never seen that in her personal life. So I'm confident that a human brain can make that distinction.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
Tasman's. Yeah. My son's been having lots of questions about, um, is this real type things he's seen in videos. Like, is this
Good.
animal real? Is this dinosaur real? Is this monster real? And it's like,
It's a very good thing to teach
yeah.
him growing up in his generation.
Are ghosts
Oh my
real?
god.
Oh, that
When
depends on
deep
who you
fakes
ask.
when deep fakes and AI generated video start hitting the world in a real way, how are we gonna deal with that with kids, man?
Oh,
Like the
yeah.
perfectly real footage of someone. Well, I don't know if that's real. It was used in
Yeah.
a court case recently. Someone said you can't prove that's meat because deepfake technology exists,
Did they
and I
win?
think he won. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that I don't know, but I
Hmm.
remember the judge commenting like that this is really unsettling for him because he has to make a judgment on it.
Yeah, it's like, what counts as evidence? We got it on video. Did you?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the thing. Video and audio can now be faked. So, what's the most reliable now? Human testimony? Ugh, that should be bottom of the list, but now might be at the top. I don't know.
Forensics?
Oh yeah, well yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's I suppose that's offside, but
We need another category in our legal system. There's innocent, there's guilty, and there's not known. Like, don't know,
no,
not proven
no, you can't do that because that's going to be it might as well be guilty,
in the social
and then
sense.
people
Yeah.
who are like innocent are going to be put in that category, and then they're going to be done.
Yeah, that's
We
true.
need some innocent. Yeah, we need more innocent until proven guilty stuff in our culture. Like we're getting too far over the line.
Maybe not proven is needed in intellectual circles or intellectual discussions of I don't know enough to comment on that. I don't know enough to have an opinion about that.
Oh, I'd love to reference a particular podcast I saw the other day, but I know you haven't listened to it because it's on uh Daily Wire side. Peterson's interactions with Naomi Wolf, seeing as I've mentioned it, I have to. Um, Very feminist lady. They had a good conversation for an hour and a half, and then they did their extra half an hour on Daily Wire side, and that was like she went hard on the COVID stuff. I was really quite blown away by that. Um, really wish it was in the main show, but yeah, for that I can't send you the link, unfortunately. Big and dangerous world our kids are walking into, and it's kind of scary.
Mm.
That's the long and short of it. We still haven't done the COVID topic as a main topic.
Yeah, and I want to do redo population because I've been doing a reassessment of a lot after having my intellectual foundations shaken a bit, and so I'm reassessing and relooking at a bunch of stuff. And
Okay. Is
yeah.
there something particular on your mind at the moment?
Well, you made the point previously that there's no point trying to set a population as the target because we're not currently a society that could aim at a target. All we can do is, well, all that happens is a general feeling of, oh, don't have kids. And then that becomes a socially enforced norm, which is not finally controlled.
I
Like
would like to
it's,
put a note on that.
hmm,
Um, you said that we're not currently something that could do that.
yeah,
Um, you don't want to be a society that could do that.
yeah,
Like, I want to make that
hmm,
very clear. You do not want a society that could aim at a target. Um, and very hopefully we will not be in one ever. Just felt like I needed.
hmm,
Kind of was a big part of that conversation I referenced, so I'm sort of like a
hmm.
little sensitive to that at the moment.
I think the German people, in a positive light, given their social propensity for following rules because they are the rules, might, and other European countries might be socially amenable to that. So there are,
Mm, I don't think that's as true as it is been pushed to believe.
mm, yeah,
Yeah,
it's something that we are
there's
definitely
some of a
not at
point.
now, and
Yeah,
whether it can
yeah,
exist is a point of argument that's worth discussing, and I don't have a strong opinion on it.
I
But
do.
you
I
do?
think it can
Yeah.
exist temporarily.
Mm. Yeah.
I don't think it's a I don't think it's a sustainable model.
Mm. Yeah.
Like, I'm assuming you reference centrally planning anything.
I'm thinking now this isn't where I was thinking of going with this, but we'll round it out. As far as working out a stable population limit, um, rather than having it centrally planned as such, more an open system to decide what the appropriate number is, so a reasonable degree of transparency, not just this is what you shall do, and then a reasonably transparent mechanism of how, yeah, then we're getting into the actual mechanics of it, and then
I
yeah,
don't think there's any way that anything even approximating that could exist without being incredibly pathological
mm,
and very dangerous.
yeah. The most interesting
I
thing
think
that
I think if you
yeah,
want a distributed system to figure out how many people there should be, the distributed system should be people making choices on whether or not they want kids.
mm, and we seem to,
You know, the more brains, the better.
if everyone gets the chance to have kids and those kids have good prospects, we seem to naturally drop to replacement rate and hold there.
Yeah. I was thinking about this recently, seeing as you brought that up. Might be an
Mm-hmm.
interesting segue. The the statement of the more women are educated, the less kids they have.
Mm-hmm.
Shouldn't that? I didn't. It didn't hit me until today how unbelievably obvious that is. Just think about it. What does education take? Education take.
Time.
Yeah.
Mm.
The more educated a given woman is, the less likely she is to have children. Because one, she doesn't have as much time left, so it's a lot harder for her to do. And two, she wants someone more educated from her, which there is a lot less of them, the more educated she is.
I wonder if a more functional social structure, because restricting women to not be able to pursue goals in the wider society is a bad structure. I think it's
Agreed.
reasonably clear. Yeah. Um, but at the same
I
time,
will say I'm somewhat tempted, but I do agree.
mm, at the same time, the contribution to the continuation of the society and the, I'm not sure if it's the right term, but quality of the next generation is more more of that sits on the shoulders of the female half the population than the male.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Hand that
because
rocks the cradle.
yeah, yeah, and of course, stay-at-home dads. I'm a single dad, for F's sake. Um, but
We'll get buzzers. Don't one day. Don't worry.
um, there was a potential route through that oh, that I think it was Peterson proposing it, that normalizing older women in education, as in normalizing taking a few years out to raise a child to school age before going back to um, career work, and normalizing that age difference. So she, hypothetically, would be 5 or 10 years behind in the career path compared to her male counterparts, but they die sooner. So then she's around longer.
Yeah. I think that is a possibility for it's such a messy
Oh,
situation. It's hard to
totally.
make
And this is highly
prognostication.
speculative.
Okay. If I'm going to be consistent with my philosophy of let people make their own choices, what we really need to do instead of like telling women what to do to not go into industry or to go into industry is, we need to just stop lying to women and stop telling them that the only way they'll ever be happy is career and family is irrelevant.
Yes.
Um,
There's a lot of speculation in
it's
this, but
not going
that's
to
a solid
happen.
one.
It's not going to happen. And perhaps we could get into this. Maybe this will be a topic for another day. But our society is fractured, falling apart, and pathological on purpose because this. Let me say this. Because someone wants it that way. This has been manufactured. This is not, oh, we were silly and went astray and made mistakes and did silly things and now we're reaping the consequences. No, this was a concerted effort to pull apart the foundations of our culture and attack everything that would make the West strong. Make it fall apart and be weak so it is no longer the dominant power.
In doing so, that effort would be just as likely to destroy itself.
You want to say that again?
In making that effort to destroy the foundations of modern Western society, those making the effort would be just as likely to destroy themselves, or you
Why?
can't sink the ship you're on without going down with it,
Yeah, but they're not on the ship.
because they're in a different social strata or a different country.
Country.
China's not looking too happy at the moment because they're not getting any import orders.
Yeah, it's sort of backfiring a little bit. They thought they were self-sustaining enough. Perhaps it's working faster than they thought. But it's very clear that this is their doing. Like, very clear. Their fingerprints are all over it. The financial traces are everywhere.
Mm.
As
Regarding,
well as they publicly stating that this is what they're doing and that they want to do it and that they're winning.
yeah, yeah, that's true.
Like, they just say that out loud without fear. And we're all like, oh, why are we falling apart? I don't know. And China's over there like, that's us. We want to destroy you. We want to rule the world. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I think that regarding the future of China, while there are a bunch of things he says that I disagree with or I'm not so sure of, I think Peter Zine um, has pointed out some reasonable assessments regarding China that if India decides to cut them off from oil, and
Mm.
all the oil sails right past the Indian coast, then they can do it, and China's industrial economy is shut down overnight. Um,
I would also note India hates China
yes.
with a fucking passion. India's military is no joke. I met an ex Indian Air Force pilot in Christchurch once, and we had a good yarn, and he showed me some shit on his phone. Um, yeah, they're no joke, and they are ready to mobilize at an instant's notice. They are not a fan of China, and they want to be the West's ally against China.
Mm,
And of course, the Western elites who are owned by China are doing everything they can to piss off India so that India aligns with China.
mm. If you look at the past 1,000
Russia.
years, yeah.
Mm.
Um, if you look at the past 1,000 years, I think it is, or 2,000 years, on average, by far, India is the richest country in the world. So
That's interesting.
they were the world's richest country until the British army walked in and stripped everything to the walls and took it back to England and powered the Great British Empire off it. And we look down on India these days because of the relative impoverishment. But they
Yeah,
were,
that's changing pretty fast.
yeah, they were the top once, basically.
Well, they're smart, they're capable, they have very high conscientious values. Um, they have, depending on where you are, very high implicit trust in their transactions. Very capitalist in that way, and they're very low on regulations, which is also helpful. Their government has become a little bit authoritarian, which isn't super helping, but it does help to maintain national identity, so there's value there.
Yeah, and
And they are kicking up and
oh,
bootstrapping really fast.
oh
Like
man, yeah.
I don't know why all of our fucking electronics and factories aren't in India.
Their space program is the
Like
most cost
if we're
effective
gonna
in the world.
yeah, if we're gonna do this whole globalization, trading to the poor country to lift them up, and we get cheap goods and they get money in manufacturing, like I can understand that argument. It's why I'm actually a lot less closed borders in terms of trade than I used to be. Because if we can lift up the bottom part of the world, you know, Western people, Americans and New Zealanders and all of us, we don't need to be richer, really, as much as I want to be, and as much as people in the West will get mad at that statement. Um, if you're thinking global benefit for the human race, making India and Africa and stuff less poor is a lot better than you having an extra 10 grand a year or 50.
Oh yeah,
Um,
I totally agree with that. I'm designing advanced STEAM
that's,
technology at
yeah,
work, and if that doesn't happen in any first world country, but goes to a bunch of third world countries where they've got wood but no oil, and they can grow wood and then do stuff with it, that's yes. That's
I do
multiplying the
think that's
effective human
hilarious
labor.
for you, for being like used to be environmental apocalypse person, and then you're like, I know what we'll do. We'll make steam tractors out of the most inefficient burning fossil fuel possible, wood. It's like, I know it's not a fossil fuel, but you get my point. Um, um, I just find that hilarious and contradictory. But it also means that your care of people exceeds your care of the environment, which makes me very happy with you. Um, yeah, why in the fuck is all of our cheap, shitty manufacturing of cheap, shitty goods that we love in the West not made in India?
I'm
Like
just
they are an ethical poor
mm,
third world nation who wants to work their ass off and get rich, and we have stupid amounts of money that we want to throw away on crap. Um, they're like perfect, but we're like, nah, the ethical capitalist country that we have like somewhat shared values with, we'll skip them. We'll go like right to communist China. That's exactly what we want.
I'm still on the
But,
your description of
that's
my
what you get
my view
when you
of the
get warehouses
environment.
owned by China for, like, the last 50 years.
Yeah. I'm still on your
Sorry?
I'm still on your description of my view of the environment, which it's oh,
Wood is the most ineffective way of burning fuel and produces the most carbon. It also
there are so
produces the
many
most
things
death.
in what you said that I'm like, you're missing half the context. You're misrepresenting this point.
Uh,
That's not the way I
no.
think entirely. That's
No, I know you get the idea of, like, regrowing forest, but, like, that's still needed for food. Um,
what
yeah,
I
which
want.
I'm not opposed to, by the way, because I think more carbon in the air is a good thing. So I'm not actually worried about that.
Wood
Um,
doesn't put more carbon in the air because the carbon in the wood came from the air.
okay. If you're going to be building completely new forestry to then cut down and use as fuel, do you think your third world nations are going to be like making that initial investment, or do you think they're going to be cutting down their forest and using it for fuel?
That is a bit of a nightmare scenario for me.
Mm-hmm. But they're going to be doing that anyway, so And if they can make the agriculture far more efficient, they can use less space. They won't. And then they can build up more forestry elsewhere. But if you kickstart their economy enough with that increase in agricultural production per acre, whatever, so that there's more food, there can then be more specialization, which leads into industrialization, which leads into the need for wood for buildings, and then boom, forestry industry, and then you're sucking carbon out of the air for that reason.
One of the other big things about steam, as opposed to other biofuel or solar, for example, you run it on waste and it works just as well. If you've got, well, almost landfill waste, you can burn that
Oh
in it.
yeah, that's immediately my brain went. Yeah, you're 100% going to have like Kenyans burning American plastic shit in the steam field tractor and dying from poisonous fumes. Ooh, you need to design in like a really efficient way of removing um, steam toxic fumes and stuff out of the tractor so whoever's operating it doesn't die and whoever's nearby doesn't die.
The funnel's a meter or how high? A meter or two up in the air? No, that one. The tractor would have it about a meter and a no, 2 meters. Yeah, about 2 meters off the ground. No, it's higher
Okay,
than that.
that's
Where am I? Yeah, maybe it's 2.5. But the funnel is placed to keep the smoke away from people. Well,
I
there's
shouldn't be
basically no
coming up with
smoke.
reasons why you shouldn't be helping the poor. The more things that you make in it, the more expensive it becomes, and then the less poor people are going to be able to use it. So, you know,
The prime use case to me
keep it
is
somewhat basic.
Pacific Islands where they're exporting wood chip by the barge load in order to buy diesel to run the trains that are moving sugarcane from the field to the mill, and then they're burning the sugarcane in a deliberately inefficient boiler just to get rid of it. It's like,
Africa would be an amazing place for this, especially as it starts to green more.
yeah,
Yeah, carbon.
like all the way across
Um,
the bottom of bottom of the Sahara in sub-Saharan Africa, they're working on reforesting it by protecting the shoots that are coming up from the existing root system of the forest that's not there anymore. The shoots are still coming
hmm.
up from the roots. So all they need to do is protect the so cut off most of the shoots, protect one from the goats until it gets big enough that the goats can't eat it, and then do that for 1,000 of them. Then you got trees.
Well, that sounds good.
Or your crop waste or whatever you can and then
God, we went off into the weeds.
yeah. But okay, the big population thing,
Yeah,
um
that's right.
yeah. Um the one I'm working on is we are not yeast in the sense of population overwhelming the carrying capacity of the environment. Yes, we're not
Yeah.
yeast. What are we? We're not omnipotent, all-knowing creatures who can decide exactly how we're going to do things with infinite knowledge. So it's like we're not zero,
We
we're
don't
not
know what
infinite.
we are.
Yeah,
We don't know
so
what we are.
I think that
We pretend we do.
the argument that there can that we are enormously distant from the carrying capacity of the planet because we're not yeast and we can act intelligently. It's like, okay, how intelligently do we actually act? An individual is intelligent, a crowd is not, very often. And,
I get that you're concerned about this.
hmm,
I don't think that it's productive to be modeling or worrying about it. Because I think in any scenario where such thoughts are taken seriously, totalitarianism and genocide follows.
yeah, yeah, and a lot of it's to
I
do with working out my current stance towards having another kid in a, if I have the opportunity, um,
I don't think you'll have the choice.
in the sense of if I find someone she'd want it.
Yes. She's going to be the mother to your child. She's going to want her own. There's no question.
Yeah,
She's not just going to like halo in and be, perfect angel and not want anything in return.
yeah, and given the current world we're in, I'm pretty solidly having more kids now is not going to make things worse. The largest danger we currently face is a rapid decline in population and what that holds. Even if
Ah, yes, finally.
even if the population that even if 9 billion is massively overstressing what the environment can handle, both in terms of handling pollution and such, the decline is baked in, and smoothing that so it's less precipitous is a net positive at the moment.
Speaking about population decline, and seeing as we're getting a little edgy with our talk of global enemies, um, also speaking about making sure we need to have more children in the future, you haven't given your son the jab, have you?
No, he was under 5 when the jab was going round, and I have no
I
plans to give it to him.
good. Please don't.
Yeah, the
We don't have to go any further than that if you don't
yeah.
want to.
Yeah,
I feel
yeah.
like that's a whole own show, but that seems to, seeing as I've mentioned it, that seems to have been the point, which is rather terrifying when you realize where it came from and who funded it.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Mm-hmm. Well, they
Uh,
said it very clearly. They want to be not well. They want to be the leaders of the world, but they're also like ridiculously racist. So I wouldn't be surprised if they want to be the only race in the world, which is
oh,
not comfortable thoughts.
the amount of projection of the shadow going on at the moment. God. Um, what is it? Though the people who are saying women can become men and any woman who acts feminine are evil. It's like, well, I wonder what shadow you're projecting. Yeah, and oh, the
Not uninfluenced.
what do you mean?
That person in perspective does not exist in a vacuum.
Yes.
That is 100% manufactured.
I think there's a bit more to it than that, in the sense of that can be manufactured, but whether it takes off in the way it has, there's a lot of chance involved in that. And I think that the pendulum of chance and social movements in general swing back the other way. So I don't think it'll
Oh,
ha-
it's not gonna no.
yeah,
It'll have a backlash for sure. But you
yeah.
can 100% manufacture a social epidemic off the bat. They've been doing it to us for like 60, 70 years and they fucking crushed us in the last three with that. Um, hey, here I am being edgy and referencing the COVID shit again. as well as the transgender stuff.
You're gonna get banned this time? Ooh.
Well, the data out of Sweden's kind of amazing.
What's
Like,
that?
they never locked
Ah,
down, they
yeah.
never vaccinated anyone, and they never closed the borders, and no one more died than normal.
And how's the
So
excess
it's
death
like,
now? As in the last year
what,
or so?
after the vaccine rollout? Well, they never forced it on anyone, but yeah, those who have taken it have died at a more precipitous rate, that's for sure.
Yeah.
No, but just the fact that during the heaviest years of the pandemic, they had no protection at all, locked down nothing, did nothing,
Mm.
and left their borders open to travel, international travel, and suffered no deaths for it. Like when you smooth out the graph of average deaths over years, it's the same. They didn't have any
Mm.
increase in excess mortality, which means like, was there actually a pandemic?
Well, you can say
Because
that
they're
there
not the
were.
only country who did that
Yeah,
and had the same result.
you can say that the excess death can be flat over that period while still including the loss of, let's say, person years that would otherwise be lived.
Okay, you could make a case that
The elderly died sooner.
yeah,
Yeah, and
you could make that case.
that's still a bad thing. But in people under 10, in people under 20,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's a thing that Peterson said that really stuck with me is that we didn't have a virus epidemic. We didn't have a pandemic. We had an epidemic of totalitarianism, where all of a sudden everyone was like, oh, totalitarian right now. Every nation on the planet just go right, imitate China.
Mm.
It worked well, you know. Props to whoever's running the team over there at that. There.
I really feel like there's gonna be now the term social Darwinism, I feel like has extra connotations I'm not meaning, but those who live dysfunctionally will be less fit in the technical sense for the future. They've put themselves at a disadvantage for the chaos of life. Oh, he dropped out and came back. Back now?
Oh, yes. Sorry, technical issues.
Yep. So,
Um, this is still early days for us.
yep. Now, what was the last thing I said that you heard?
I don't remember.
Okay,
I think
so
I was talking, maybe.
I was. Oh, if you were talking, then I. Okay, social Darwinism. Probably has connotations I'm not intending as I say this, but I think that those who uh, buy in most to the social epidemic of our age, whichever one you would care to pick, are long term self selecting against themselves.
I would agree. Um, that is somewhat concerning, as it is generally creative women
Mm,
that do that. Um, but it's not like I can really do anything about that. The social epidemic, psychological epidemic happened to them.
yeah. And that's been happening for thousands of years.
Yeah, and they paid the price for it many times. Not imposed by men, for those. Who am I kidding? No feminists listening to this shit. You better not. You should be ashamed of yourself. Go cancel yourself for it. Uh,
Or they're here
um,
to prove us wrong and are actually listening to find counter arguments. In which case, good.
yeah, they
Think.
don't. They don't do that. They
Oh,
don't.
it's happened. It's happened.
The old school ones do. Old school ones do. And old school ones are effectively classical liberals, as far as I can tell. Usually ones who are abused and therefore have a very deep hatred of men. But they're at least sort of balanced. Um,
They recognize their points have to be backed up by an actual argument rather than just shouting.
yeah, and they don't want the destruction of the West because they were actually raised in a time where classical liberal values were espoused and not Marxism.
Hmm.
Cough, cough, China once more. Yeah, I just realized that I've been like super worried about living under authoritarian communist China, and then remembered that like all of our governments have been owned by them for a long time. I was like, oh, I guess I already do. Hmm, what am I worried about then? This is going to be a really interesting century, man.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like this, I suppose this comes back to a bit of a metaphysical thing. I believe that you choose when and where you're born
Yep.
to a certain extent. I don't want to go too far into that belief because it raises some real uncomfortable questions about, you know, people in the horrible places in the world. Um, yeah, I don't want to go too far into that. Metaphysics can get really uncomfortable really fast. But I am here in what I consider to be effectively the safest place on the planet. Yeah, I think literally.
Hmm.
Um, and I was born in '97. I got to see the internet become something really what it is, and not like email or bulletin boards. I get to experience a world without majority of people having phones when I was a kid, and then my teenager years I got to see the transition into smartphones, and then we've got all the AI stuff going on now. There's the nuclear physics stuff going on in the background that no one's really talking about. There's the UFO issue. There's the totalitarianism issue. There's like all of these issues that are society level shaking and collapsing and transforming.
Oh, yep. Yep.
And I know people always say that like, oh, everywhere in history it feels like the world's ending. You know, this day and age, I can view every perspective on the whole planet effectively, and I can see full well that like this is make it or break it time for humans, and that's effectively, as far as I'm concerned, why the ETs are showing up and paying a lot of attention right now. And it's a trippy thing to imagine, but I fully expect you and I both to live to 2100, which would be, I mean, imagine we're 2023 now. You got 77 more years. 77 more years of this chaotic planet to experience. Not, your chaotic town or your chaotic neighborhood in the social dramas of the olden days, times gone by. We're plugged into the planet. We see everything. And everything is changing at ridiculous rates, like quantum computing's about to hit. That's going to change everything, especially once, you know, large language models accelerate and are on quantum computing, which is where things are going to get pretty AI, as far as I'm concerned, because that's what we are. Um, the energy stuff is going to be unbelievable. I mean, it already is, as far as I'm concerned, but it's not public. And it looks like we're moving in the direction of disclosure on purpose now, which is going to make things wildly interesting. Obviously, right in the background of this discussion, it's funny how I forget this on a day-to-day basis. Planet's flirting with nuclear war and is closer to it than we ever were in the Cold War, ever. So, like, awesome. Just put that on there, as well as the societal collapse stuff that's going on around us. We got another effectively 80 years of this.
There was someone I
And we can't
saw.
even, like, what's going to happen next year? You got any predictions? If it's 6 months from now.
My number one prediction would be the unexpected.
Yeah, this could be nuclear winter 6 months from now.
Though I saw
AI could have taken over the whole planet and made us all slaves or made us all infinitely rich somehow.
I wouldn't go that far.
Quantum computing.
I'd generally
Yeah,
predict
but
more of the same, but a little more.
yeah, but this is the other thing. Those options are not zero
Mm,
possibility. And the percentage is increasing by the day.
yeah. I
I'm not
saw,
saying they're likely,
yeah.
but
In terms of how chaotic
next year,
things are at the moment, I saw someone pointing
yeah.
out that we have in the past, in the wider financial system, well, in the US financial system, there have
Mm,
been losses in the last few weeks with their banks collapsing equal to
uh,
everything that was lost in the 2008 crash, and it's just
oh
getting
yeah.
started.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, and they bailed them out again.
Yep.
Yay. Let's make it an even bigger bubble than the one was going to pop this year. That's the other thing. Economic system's going to completely collapse. Good boy you for having some savings in physical metals. I don't. I need to. Oh my god. That's a big motivation for my year. I want to have a big stack of things like that by the end of the year for when the financial system collapses.
The
I
thing
think it
about the thing about financial systems collapsing is they do it every now and again. It's not an infrequent thing. And
okay, global though.
there are the moves away from the dollar as the sole currency. Um, if stuff collapses, something gets jury-rigged the next day. And I'm not saying it would be easy. I'm not saying that there wouldn't be massive losses and a lot of chaos, but the sun will rise again and people will get up for
Oh,
breakfast.
okay. I want to make a point when I'm describing the, hey,
Mm.
we got 80 more years of this. I'm not making prognostications about the end of the world.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah,
end of
life will go on,
end of what we
but
know. It's not the end of
yeah,
life.
it's change.
Mm.
Everything's going to change. We're gonna see some shit in our time. And I started that segment by saying that I fully expect us to live to 2100. I don't think we're all gonna die. I don't think the world's over.
Mm.
Um, just make some healthy choices.
Yeah. I've got medical
But
disagreements with that, but I don't think it'll be worldwide nuclear apocalypse.
medical disagreements, like aging stuff?
Yeah, basically. I have my doubts will cure aging as such.
Well, we don't need to. We're prolonging it enough at this point that by the time that time rolls around for us, we'll have another 50 years at least.
I'm skeptical, but I don't know enough to have an informed opinion.
We're not just living longer at this point anymore. We're not just not dying young, and we're not just making the elderly in nursing homes living longer. We're making the middle of life longer. Like middle aged is getting pretty wide now. If you look
Hmm.
after yourself, by the time you're retirement age, you don't need to retire. You're still pretty healthy. You may as well be 45. And there's a pretty solid curve as that technology advances. And, I assume it's going to keep going. I don't expect the curve to radically change in any direction. Now, perhaps it's more of an S curve, but that's generally expected as well. I don't think we're going to be immortal. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
But, and I don't want that. Although, oh, Jesus Christ, I don't know. Maybe. No.
Metaphysics comes in on that one.
Speaking of metaphysics, something that reference came up in my mind earlier during a reference that we had. It's the when the aliens come and they telepathically communicate with people they abduct or whatever, they all say the same thing, which is kind of fascinating to me.
Hmm.
And that what they say effectively is that they pity us. That we pity you because you do not know what you are yet. And effectively, that's all they ever say.
I lean towards what I've termed ultra-terrestrial as opposed to extraterrestrial, but your point stands in that context too.
I think that's just semantics. It doesn't really matter where they're from.
Yeah, they're from a place that is not here as we know it.
As far as the ET community is concerned, that's not the right word, the UFO community is concerned, there's no disagreement there. We still call them ETs or whatever,
Mm.
but the prevailing theory is exactly what you said, or what you mean by ultra terrestrial.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the standard theory.
Okay, that's interesting because my understanding was that the standard theory was a planet orbiting a distant star.
Potentially, but we this community, I'll say we. I feel like I'm a part of that community. We think that um, the technology and physics that the craft use are accessed through a higher dimension, a non-physical one, and that they have also integrated that technology into themselves. And because of that, in my eyes, although I don't think this is particularly discussed in the community, whether or not they even return to the realm in which we live in their like normal life, whatever the fuck that is sort of, you know, irrelevant.
Mm. Or whether they
I
originated on
don't think.
this level to start with.
Personally, I think they did because I think that we're just going to become what they are. Um, yeah, but I don't think the UFO community really cares where they come from.
Mm.
I think that they care that they're not us and that they're intelligent. I think that's the important point. I think like if it's from a planet or
Mm.
from a different dimension or whatever, it kind of doesn't matter.
Yeah.
There's something beyond us that we need to engage with, and we are now.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of I think it's kind of cool that like the Senate Armed Services Committee is having briefings on it and stuff.
One of the things that oh, where did I see it pointed out? That the way that UFOs, when they are more than just a light, have appeared has changed with popular culture in essence, um, implying that they're taking the cues on how they appear from us.
Okay, that's curious because okay, what do you mean by that?
People have encountered basically the Greys for a while
Hmm.
now, but they never encountered them with that particular set of descriptions. Like there were possibly similar looking ones, but not that particular one until the popularized version of the was it Barney and Betty Hill?
Hmm.
So they met blonde, blue-eyed, human-looking creatures in the craft that landed in front of their car, but then to make it a bit more televisable or popular on the radio, the guy who wrote the script for it put in the Greys basically, and after that, people started encountering the Greys.
Okay,
Also,
that's interesting.
the
There are ancient stories of people encountering greys, though.
Greys in the that precise form, or a form that could be.
Effectively closest enough. I think it's silly to assume that if we're being visited by one thing, that we're only being visited by one thing.
Yes.
Like, as far as I'm concerned, there could be many different. From what I hear of things I've seen and heard, there are many different entities that show
And
up.
they are not everything that is encountered is of the same kind, even if there's a variety of those. It's like there are cases of mistaken identity. There are cases
Yes.
of people with psychological issues. There are US military attempts at hiding their secret aircraft tests. There are a lot of
Yeah,
things.
like what I saw. We
I
never
look
end up
forward to
talking
hearing that
about that.
story.
We talked about you and your alcohol thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was an interesting day.
it was. It was.
Um, yeah, there's another one of those things that I find funny in life where people are like, "No, that stuff could never exist. It doesn't exist," and I'm just sort of sitting there and I'm like, "Well, that's cool. I've seen it, with my own eyes, but that's cool." I still
Yeah.
love how much you bit on the whole chemtrails thing. I think about that sometimes. I think it's funny. How I just sort of casually mention that, and you like couldn't help yourself but be like, "Ah, I need to explain this. That's what I was told to say." Uh, I love this. It's so much fun.
I feel like you're needling me for the fun of it a little bit.
I am. I do want to talk about that again, though, at some point. Um,
Chemistry of combustion. It's like
hmm? Sorry.
combustion produces water. Water released at high altitude produces clouds. If you do that in a line where the atmospheric conditions are right, you get a trail of vapor.
Does that trail of vapor then unfold over the period of 4 to 6 hours to cover an entire city?
If you have a lot of them, yes.
About one, or continued ones flying in parallel lines.
High altitude winds going in one direction across it, and a series of aircraft on a certain path. I'm not saying there is not something there. I'm not excluding that possibility, but not from, say, every commercial airliner. Those are different arguments. Saying that every commercial
Yeah.
airliner leaving a trail of vapor
I,
is spraying chemicals is a
yeah, but
different
I
thing.
didn't say that. Yeah, but I never said that. You assumed that.
That's true. That's true. I did.
This is most of the time when people are like, "Oh, they can trust people lose their minds." It's like, okay. When I say that, what I mean is I look at the sky and I see a plane fly over and it leaves a trail and then it unfolds into a massive cloud and changes the weather. And it's like, oh, okay, that's the thing. And then you say that to people and the result is like, no, that doesn't happen. I didn't say anything about like seeding chemicals, but they 100% could if that's how the physics reaction works. And they 100% have said that they've done it on public TV before with Jeremy Clarkson. uh, but there's so much assumptions and based in talking about things like that, especially with the UFO one as well.
Oh yeah.
You say one statement and then people assume that you believe 50 other crazy conspiracy theories. That's like, I didn't say that, bro. You said that. And then, it just becomes an attack argument.
Yeah. Or the assumption of there being a fixed number of allowable answers in the discussion and
Yeah.
pointing out, hang on a minute, this particular answer does not work in particular cases.
Yeah, it's like a 1 or 0 argument. It's like,
Hmm.
oh, you don't believe the establishment narrative on this. Therefore, you must believe the most extreme conspiracy theory I've ever heard on the thing. Like, maybe there's a middle ground. Maybe.
Yeah, and there's a lot of room for discussion in that middle ground too, and disagreement.
Yeah, also, most of the time when you encounter people, I'll say like me, but like, so conspiracy minded people, what they really are saying to you is like, hey, I've seen enough in my life to know that established story is bullshit. I wonder if it's something else.
Hmm.
And then, you know, if you ask them about it, they'll go, well, it could be this, but I don't know. That's generally the story I've got. Even those who are real loony, like I've entertained some loony people, and they'll tell me their big conspiracy story, and I'm like, wow, that's interesting. It doesn't seem particularly realistic or whatever, and they're like, yeah, I know, you know, but I know it's not the established story, and you know, apparently I'm not allowed to make up any other story about it, which is also pretty sus. So this one makes sense to me, so that's what I'm going to go with.
Yeah, like the
And as
feeling,
far as I'm concerned, that's pretty logical.
yeah, the perception that the government is lying to us. It's like, who thinks the government is not lying to us at all? And it's like, oh, you raised your
Oh
hands.
my
Would you like to
god.
see this list of examples that are now public knowledge from declassified documents?
I really wish that was a class in school. What single class in school could do more benefit to society than sitting all the kids down for an hour and be like, right, well, let me tell you about all of the things that you should not trust established, credible sources about because they lie all the time. They're not actually credible, they're just establishment.
I was listening to a Joe Rogan one recently about, what was it, cholesterol?
Yes. Oh,
Yeah,
that was such a good episode.
yeah.
It's still on my mind quite a bit.
I'm not done with it yet, but like pointing out, what was it, like there's something like 500 million or 1 billion people on statins worldwide, and he was saying that not everyone needs to be on this. We are overprescribing this drug, and cholesterol is not the bad thing it's been made out to be. And look, you can see the money trail from the sugar industry to the guy who did the first
Hmm.
landmark studies that quote proved sugar was the problem.
Yeah. I don't
Mm.
know how far you've got into it, but he does later go into like the percentage benefit is like 1% reward
Oh yeah.
for taking the statins and like 20% risk of serious side effects.
Mm. Yeah, like
And
nothing.
that a majority of
Yeah.
drugs that Big Pharma releases knowingly have serious side effects that will kill people, but they do it anyway because it releases them money. Cough, cough, COVID. And that's what they go into for the rest of the film.
Yeah.
Such a good conversation. Oh, that one was great.
I'm really hoping that we manage to get. Hmm, I was going to say money out of medicine, but that might be a bit optimistic. Get uh, cheap treatments not repressed, or at least able to be done without repression. Like,
Yeah, I don't.
I've managed to
My
find
feelings are pretty mixed on the public versus private healthcare thing.
well, the one I'm thinking
Um,
of specifically is I finally found the combination of medicine that will take my hay fever down to, yeah, it's a bit annoying, but it's no problem. From constant sniffles, like every third in breath is a sniff, because dribbles. From taking 3 medications at the maximum daily recommended dose, and I've tried a few different ones and so on. The one that worked to take it down to annoying as opposed to more was a homeopathic one.
yeah, our solution was just to not live around excess um, carbon pollution from cars.
Yeah,
That worked pretty well.
acknowledging that as a contributing factor too. It's like, oh no, no,
Well, yeah, like
it's
my
yeah.
wife's sick, so I did the old bowl of hot water with some herbs in it rather than like decongestant pills.
Mm,
It worked great. And we did that effectively because she's pregnant, so she can't like have you know cold and flu tablets or whatever, which
yeah.
do work great. I'm not gonna lie; those night and day things fucking blow the shit out of anything when I'm sick. But this worked great. I just put like half of a lemon in a bowl with some thyme and then poured hot water over it, and she breathed in the fumes. And it's like, oh, all of that's gone. I should do it again a bit actually. She's probably sleeping. I hope my daughter's behaving. She's in the lounge alone watching a movie.
Do you want to go
But she
check on
had
her
good
for a sec?
fun. Ah, she's fine. Um, I trust her. She's a human being. We went on the farm earlier. It was good fun. She's sitting on the front of the bike, quad bike, holding on to the inner part of the handlebars. not unhappy at all, bouncing around, big smile on her face. So much calmer and better behaved when she's, like, doing something out like that. It's great. I love it.
Hmm.
I think she might actually end up coming on the farm with me a lot. One thing I have noticed about people who have traumatic backgrounds is, activity is everything. It's like the ADHD thing. It's not a brain disorder, they were just abused. Um, Stopping moving hurts for someone who's experienced trauma because, like, sitting without drugs or stimulus, all the feelings return. But when you're out and you're doing stuff, you're like, "Oh, I gotta go and do this and that and this and that," and it's like all that goes away. Great. Which is, I suppose that's where the what do you call it? The addiction to work? Does it isn't there a saying to that
Um,
that I've forgotten?
Workaholic?
Yes, that one, workaholic, thank you. That's effectively a form of addiction to deal with trauma.
Hmm.
And then it feeds into I heard someone make a joke about that, that it feeds into other addictions too. So, like, I'm a
Oh,
workaholic, and then I work so hard so that I sit down and rest and, like, "Oh, I deserve to buy myself something now." Or, "I deserve to drink." You see how it's self-reinforcing.
yeah, there's a thing that I remember reading that you can't, if you've got rats in a lab in a natural setting, so it's stimulating to them, it's what their brain's built for, you can't get them addicted to cocaine. Put them in a cage where they're bored out of their skulls and give them access to cocaine, and they'll get addicted. Put them back in the natural environment, I think the addiction fades away because, like, when you function how you're built to function, you don't need the the thing to stop it hurting.
I would bet a substantial amount of money that if you took a juvenile rat and tortured it and then put it in that cage, that it would just go straight for the cocaine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Screwing someone up mentally, yeah. Once you and you dropped out again, I'll give you a sec to get back. Oh, oh well. Technical difficulties continue, audience. Yeah, you're back.
More technical difficulties. My apologies. I got some stuff I need to fix on my phone before we do the next recording. Ah,
Yeah. But where was it? Yeah, rats who've been traumatized, being addicted to cocaine. Where were we?
yeah. It was just making a point about childhood trauma is affects us in a lot of ways, and as much as I have issues with my eldest daughter because she acts out because of that, and then that frustrates me, which is like, difficult. And I can see how other families will become an a self-fulfilling thing.
Hmm.
Like the parents were abused, so they have this reaction, and then they hurt the kid when the kid was young, and then the kid acts out, and then they hurt them more, and then the kid acts out, and it's just like round in a circle. Um,
Yeah.
to be clear, I don't do that with my daughter. Um, but she's got some trauma from when she was a baby, effectively.
From you working through
Um,
your issues or not having worked through them yet?
Me personally, like at the moment.
No, no, back then, as in it wasn't, as in that the reason for
Okay.
her having those experiences was you dealing with your own bad experiences.
I feel like I need to be careful now because if I ever get famous, this is going to be a part everyone nails me for. Um, it was a very complicated situation. It's something that I would have to take a long time to break apart.
Hmm.
There's other people involved. It's not a black and white, I'm a bad guy kind of thing. With that said, I did things I should not have done. And most of that was hmm, see whatever future discussion where I explain this properly. I was young. I didn't know how to parent particularly well. I was abused myself, so I had my natural tendencies of wanting to lash out at everything. And I was in a family environment where punishing the child was encouraged. by adults around me who were supposed to know how to actually raise a child.
When you were a child.
No, when we
Okay.
had our eldest daughter.
Okay.
We were at her parents' house at the time, who also abused her, which is, great. And were encouraging and rewarding us for such actions to our daughter. And it wasn't till after a year or so after, no, not that long. It wasn't until after we left there and started to do some own research of ours on parenting, because no one teaches you how to be a parent these days, that we realized the mistakes that we were making and what we had done to her. And then from that moment, once we had realized, we stopped doing that and have seen a miraculous turnaround in her, though she has still got many problems. The point I was going to make with all that is that as much as her problems and acting out frustrates me and triggers me in my trauma, and that I frankly love the younger daughter more because she doesn't do that and she's like calm and rational and intelligent, and I'm able to interact with her because she's never had anything like that. I can relate better to my eldest who was abused. Not abused. Yeah, God damn it.
Who had a tough time?
Look, I don't want to be outing myself and get myself thrown in prison and have my kids taken away. But if another person had did what I did to their kid for like the whole course of childhood rather than like 6 months, I would call them an abuser. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I have coworkers who hit their kids, and I would be tempted to call them child abusers for it. They're not like super bad, but it is a thing. My my use of the word abuse is a lot more liberal than most. So whatever thing you're imagining that you think I've done to my child, it's probably not that bad for a listener. Anyway, I was going
Hmm.
to keep putting fucking asterisks. I can relate to her a lot more, and I feel like that if I end up bringing her out to help me on the farm or whatever, or do things with her, that when we do stuff together and we're both focused on doing a thing, we're in sync and we both behave in a way that both of us understand really well. But like me, when she's bored and's got nothing to do, um, things can get unstable quickly.
Hmm.
So it is, I have my youngest daughter who has not had any of these negative experiences and who is a much better person for it, as far as we can all tell. But I can relate to my eldest because she also went through the experiences in a milder version than I did. And even now, she has sort of expressed that she understands. Like when I get frustrated or upset or whatever, or I get grumpy and I need to leave, um, I come back and she's like saying it's okay because she does it too, and she knows that you know I'm not always good, and neither is she, and that's because we have troubles. But when we're doing something together, it's like there's no, I don't know, there's nothing else going on. She's a lot quieter, focused. We just do the thing together. Like when I took her to work. And I feel like that's the response I would have. So I feel a lot more love for her in the moment like that, which is what happened this afternoon.
Hmm.
God, this podcast is such a dangerous thing we're doing. Once
Yeah.
more, I would like to reiterate the point of this podcast. Just for myself and for whoever's listening right after that statement. Um, every public intellectual I've ever listened to has presented themselves as someone who is perfectly put together with no psychological issues that they're struggling with and with all of the answers to all the questions like they're some oracle.
This
And
This is the story of
I
the
don't
struggle.
believe it. I don't believe it. Human beings are broken, traumatized people who are struggling to figure out what the fuck's going on. Even the most intelligent people are still struggling with it because you can't know everything. The more you think you know, the less you actually do. The midwit problem, effectively. But even for really smart people, the really smart ones, when they're honest and not on camera, they'll say, "Fuck, I got no idea what's going on. I just know these few things." But everyone likes to play it up like they're some perfectly put together person and they don't have their own struggles and they don't make mistakes. And I can understand a bit of that in the popular culture now. Like no one wants to get cancelled for saying, you know, anything. But if I am truly opposed to that, we are truly opposed to that, we can't do the same thing. We can't sit here and pretend like we don't have our own issues or we actually know all the answers. Um,
Because this is
I
what
know I make
thinking
clients
looks
a lot.
like. This is what
Yeah,
figuring it out looks like. And yeah, it's no good
yeah,
having role models who've got it all figured out if you're just trying to figure it out. Like, what does figuring it out look like?
yeah. And I don't believe they do. Fundamentally, I think it's a mask.
Mm.
Um, maybe only a little bit of a mask. Like maybe they have a lot of it figured out, but there's like the things that they don't talk about. But I still think it's a bit ingenuine.
Mm.
Um, I would also point out that I make a lot of statements of facts and claims in these conversations. Um, I alternate between thinking I'm a genius and an idiot and thinking I know everything and know nothing, like every second of the day. It's very difficult. And I make those claims as far as I can tell because I am ridiculously disagreeable. And it's hard for me to do the agreeable thing that you do, which is like putting asterisks on all the statements of like, this could be a possibility, but I don't know, and like making clear communication to the other party that while I have an idea, I don't think I'm all of this. It's hard for me to do that consistently.
Mm.
It is unbelievably the case with me because I am also like very high on the neuroticism scale, which is helpful. Um, so I have those doubts and questions and critiques of myself quite a lot, more than most people, I believe. But because I'm super disagreeable, I don't say it. I I just say like, oh, this is the thing. That's true. Even though in my brain it's like, maybe I think so, but like I don't know anything. I'm an idiot.
Mm. And then if someone comes along
Um,
and disproves something you think, then you'll do what you see as true after after they've proved their point. You'll look at what you used to think and say, "Oh, yeah, there's that issue
yeah,
in it
I'll
that got
integrate
pointed
it.
out." Yeah.
Yeah. Like new data is always integrated. I don't ignore anything.
Mm.
I think a good example of what I'm trying to say is I always get in this fight with my mother and my grandmother. I don't talk to them too much for other reasons, but when I did, um, I would make a statement about a population, and I would always, every time, trying not to swear, get the response of like, yes, but not all. And it's because I'm the disagreeable person. It's like, I understand that. I'm not going to qualify every statement with, I am making a claim about a population, but I also do not know it for a fact, and it might not be true, and there's always exceptions, and I need to tick off all these boxes to make sure the communication's clear. As like 99th percentile disagreeable, I will just say like, yes, but women this thing, or something like that. And then I have to have that wee argument afterwards of like, no, of course, there's always exceptions. Yes, I understand. Yes, I know it's arrogant, but da 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 da. I was talking to my wife about this earlier, which I thought was funny. Is that if I do an IQ test and I find out that I'm average in intelligence, then like, what the fuck is going on with me? Because I am so crazy and weird and really good at ideas. Um, and I could see a world in which I am actually just average intelligence, but my big five personality thing is so abnormal that it creates this weird situation. Like I might as well say it, seeing as we're on the topic. I'm 99th percentile for openness, so that's creativity, but for both aesthetics and ideas, as well as 99th percentile for conscientiousness, um, for orderliness in particular, a little bit less for industriousness, I remember. It's like 85th maybe. Also 99th again for neuroticism, which is really painful, particularly after I start arguments for being so disagreeable. Extroversion, extroversion's the other one. That one's not a 99. I'm more introverted, but it's a bit of a mix. I think I'm like 25th percentile there. And I'm probably blanking on the last one.
Did you mention disagreeableness?
I think so. Openness, conscientiousness, disagreeableness, neuroticism, and extroversion. No, I had all five.
Okay.
Got it. Yeah, I think extroversion slash introversion is the only thing that I'm not like off the charts for. I'm pretty introverted, but I do like a bit of socialization. I think I'm like 25 to 40, somewhere in that range. I haven't done this in a long time, but the other ones are all off the chart. My phone keep going off on me. It's very annoying.
If
Oh,
you,
the stress response I'm feeling right now is off the charts as well.
well, I had another sacred cow we could slay.
Yes, please. Anything to get off this topic. I'm having a panic attack.
Unconditional love, and the way that it doesn't exist much between adults.
Oh, God. I said I wanted to get off my stress response,
Sorry.
mate. No, I think that's a great topic. Um, do we want to go into it now, though?
Yeah, we're two
Like, how long have
hours.
we been? We're
And
2 hours in?
an hour 52
Or,
recorded at the moment.
okay. Maybe we should save that for next time because that kind of ties in with the men and women relationship issue
Yes.
that's been harping on my mind, and then the end of sex thing that came up after that.
Hmm.
But I feel like that's closer to the like transhumanism, potentially UFO topic. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what transhumanism means. It's one of those confused ones.
I think I always hated the idea, but recently I've sort of maybe come around to understand why the people who support that think it's a good thing.
Hmm.
I would make it clear that I don't believe that, but I can see their argument, and there is a touch of potentially inevitable to it, which is terrifying to me and I don't like. Um, and there are some serious upsides about not having certain issues between male and female anymore. And then that sort of, in my mind, ties into the sexless greys issue as well.
Hmm.
So I don't know what's going on there, but unconditional love is not real. That's
Children?
that's
Maybe?
obsession. No, No, people can hate their kids.
Hmm. But they can
I think
unconditionally love them too.
uh
And I will love you no matter what you do, but I might not be able to stay around to watch.
um I don't know with kids. Here's another uncomfortable sacred cow. A lot of love's really choice.
Hmm. Yep.
So like you can choose to be unconditionally loving to kids, I think. But you can also choose not to love them.
Hmm.
And I don't think it's a one-time choice. I think you could just choose it again, which is, also terrifying. We're gonna go into my relationship anxiety next time. I can see it coming already. God damn it. Um, Unlike you, I am not going to a therapist, which means we'll probably end up doing therapy for me on the show.
If
But
you're up
that's
for
okay
it.
because we've done that before. We've certainly done it before.
Well, I had my turn. Now
Um,
it's your turn.
I feel like we've both had a turn back and forth a couple times.
Yeah, yeah, I
So
agree.
yeah, maybe because this is a rather fundamental thing for me, and it's sort of shaken loose at the moment, and I'm struggling with it. Um, so yeah, maybe. But yeah, I think the unconditional love's a good place to start for next time. I'm getting
Hmm.
a little past it now anyway. I can feel myself slipping away.
Yeah. It's a real one of those uh assumptions about how relationships work that doesn't really hold up to scrutiny.
Yeah, lie is how I would say that. Something that's told to children that really shouldn't be.
Yeah,
Because if you grow up and then you believe that and then you interact in the real world and get walloped for it, that's very painful, very
yeah.
violent. I think we should call it here
I think that's
and
a good
say good
idea.
night to whoever's listening. I can feel myself becoming less conscious by the second.
Okay.
So
Well,
if it's evening wherever you are, I hope you go and do the same.
yep. Good night.
Good night, everyone.